there, this is Patricia from patriciafenty.com, and today I have a super fun project for this hooded scarf, and I'm going to show you how you can attach a hood, make and attach a hood to any scarf pattern that you like. And this is such a fun project, and I think that it's such a whimsical, very fun kind of project, and super easy to do. And you can use any scarf pattern you like, any stitch pattern for the hood you like. It's super easy. Let's get started. So there I was, crocheting a comfort blanket for my local cat rescue center, and I was using this really pretty yarn. This is the Mainstays acrylic yarn. This is available from Walmart, I believe. It's a number 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. I don't have the actual color for this right here. I'll put the name of it up above. But anyways, it was an inexpensive yarn, so I was using it to make this comfort blanket. And I laid the blanket down and folded it like this. And I thought, wow, that would be a really cute hood for a scarf. And I did have this scarf that I'd already made. I have the tutorial for this. I'll link that in the description box below. And so I just sort of pinned it together and pinned this. I pinned across the top here, and then I pinned the bottom onto the hood, and oh my gosh, it was so cute. So I thought, what a simple process. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use any scarf pattern, any stitch pattern to make a hood that you can add to a scarf, a sweater, a poncho, a shawl, or a pocket shawl. It's a super easy process, and so I'll show you how we'll do that. So you'll start with any scarf pattern that you like, and I will put a link in the description box below. You can click on the link that says blog post with more information. I'll put my whole playlist of scarf and shawl tutorials, so you can pick any pattern that you like. And basically all you're doing is you're making a piece of fabric. Like, that's what crochet is. Crochet is about making fabric, and once you make a panel of fabric, you can do all sorts of things with it. So this particular panel is 18 inches wide, because that's the cat blanket width, and then it's 13 inches tall, which when you fold it in half, you then get a hood that is 9 inches across the width here, and it's 13 inches high. That's a good length for, or a good size for an average, small, medium youth, small adult size. If you want to make it bigger, by all means, you just can make it a little bit wider, a little bit taller. What happens is when you make the hood taller, you get that more of a, from the front view, you get more of a sort of a fold like that. It becomes sort of more, I don't know, fairy-like or elf-like or hobbit-like. So the taller it is this way, the more this fold will sort of fold out like that. So there's no rocket science to this. It's very flexible, but I found that this was a good size for my body, my head. So once it's folded over, 9 inches by 13 inches. And when you make the fabric this way, your foundation row is 18 inches. Your foundation row has a nice finish on either side. And these edges here, this is your selvage edge. And you'll notice from crochet, this edge isn't finished quite as nice. So for this particular hood pattern, the selvage edge is going to be facing out towards the face. Two things you can do with this. One is you can make this a bit deeper. You can add another 2 to 4 inches on it. And then before you sew it on, you can fold it back, and you can have a folded edge. So it's like about, what is that, 2 inches maybe? Yeah, so you'd add 4 inches onto your foundation width, and then you could fold it back, and then you'd have that folded edge. The other thing you could do is I'm going to show you how to do a crab stitch, where you'll finish this front edge once it's all sewn on. So I'll show you how to do that. However, You could also just make your fabric piece in a different shape. So this is the shape of this fabric that I have here. It's a foundation row of 18 inches, 13 inches high, selvage on this side, and I'm folding it like this. And that makes the hood like that. We'll sew it across the top. We'll sew it onto the scarf here, and then I'll show you how to do that crab stitch. However, what you could do is you could make your foundation row 26 inches long and 9 inches high, and you would fold it this way. So then your selvage edges would be sewn onto the scarf, and you would sew a back seam, and what you'd be left with is a nice finished front seam. So your front seam would look like this, and then you wouldn't have to worry about finishing it off at all. So that's two different ways to do it. And then I'll put the link in the description box below for this stitch pattern. So no matter what your scarf pattern is, so long as you're using the same color yarn, you can either use the same stitch pattern for your hood. So you could go ahead and use the same straight granny stitch to make the hood. I'm just using this stitch for the comfort mat for the pet rescue, and it's just a double crochet stitch. Or if you were, I just did this tutorial recently, this one would be really fun if you made the hood out of the granny squares. And in that case, you would want to make, this is actually 9 inches wide, which is perfect. And then you'd want to make this panel as close to 26 inches as possible. These are each 3 inches, so you'd end up with 8 rows of these small squares, and you may need to add maybe a couple of rows of double crochet to get, you know, the depth or the height that you need. So, you know, it's a very flexible thing. You can be playful. You can use all kinds of stitch patterns. You could make the hood with this one just using the half double crochet V-stitch, which is for the body of the scarf. There's just so many possibilities. So I encourage you to be, you know, playful, be creative, and then I'll just show you the steps of how to attach the hood and then finish this edge. All right, so once you have the panel the size that you want, and I forgot to mention for this panel, which is 18 inches wide and 13 inches tall, my foundation row was a total of 58 stitches, and I did a total of 23 rows. And that's based on my tension, my yarn. Of course, yours will be different depending on what yarn you're using. So once you get to the end of your panel, you're just going to take your hook off and fold this over the seam that you're going to be sewing. You want to measure that, just gently measure that, and you're going to do 2 times the length plus some for a tail and cut that off. And then you can just you'll do a chain 1 to fasten off, pull your thread through, and we're going to use that to sew across the top seam. Then you can go ahead and darn your tail end in from your bottom end. Okay, so I've put my needle onto that long tail, and I've folded the fabric in half, and we're going to be sewing across the top seam that'll go across the head. So we're doing this piece here, we're folding it in half, and we're going to sew across the top. Well, actually, we're going to go this way, and then the bottom will be what's sewn onto the scarf. If you decide to do your panel this way, you're going to do the same thing, but you're just going to sew. This will be the top of your hat hood, and then you're sewing down the back seam. And you know, it doesn't matter because you'll have one seam open, that'll be the front seam. So measure twice the length of that seam, give yourself a little tail. And we're just going to do a really basic whip stitch, and I'm going to be going under both loops. So you've got your front loop and your back loop, so I'm going to be stitching through both of those. So I'm going to go through on the opposite side here, and then I'm going to come around with another stitch going through that same loop, because that's the front of the hood, so I want to give it a nice little secure start. and snug that up. And then you're just going to do a basic whip stitch. So you go over to the next stitch, going under both loops, and pick up the next stitch of the other side. And this loop will be facing in a little bit, this front loop. And so just go under those V stitches like that. And then you're just going to go over to the next stitch, picking up under that V stitch and under that V stitch. So picking up both stitches, or both loops I mean, you're just going to whip stitch all the way along the top or back of your hood. And I will see you at the end. So once you come to the end of that seam, you can just finish off that stitching, and then you can just bring your needle down into the inside here, like that. And then you can just darn in your tail end on the inside. And then you have your top seam or your back seam all done. Now the next step, once you have your hood sewn, is you're going to find the center of your hood. So you do that by folding it in half, and you find the center of the back of the hood, and you fold your scarf in half, and you find the center of that, and you bring those together. And you can use a pin, like a safety pin or a stitch marker or a piece of yarn, so that you have your hood and your scarf centered. If you do have a right side to the fabric, then this is going to be the wrong side up. So see, we have the inside of the hood here. That would be the wrong side of the fabric, and you would have the wrong side of the scarf fabric facing up. Most scarf patterns, and certainly this pattern, there is no wrong side. They're both the same, so it doesn't matter. But if you do have a wrong side, you'll have the wrong sides facing up towards you. Once you found your center, you're going to flatten out the hood section and just evenly measure it out, and you'll put a stitch marker at either end, and that's where you're going to sew it on. Now all you do to sew it on is we're going to continue using that same whip stitch. So get your needle and yarn, and you just want to measure 2 lengths. You measure this twice plus a bit for your tail, and then all you're going to do is you'll just fold it so that you're bringing your seams up together like this, and you have your V-stitch seams facing up. And then you can just go in, follow the stitch marker, and I know I'm a little bit far away. Actually, here, I'll just come in a bit closer. All right, so you have your stitch marker here, and then you can just go in from underneath the 2 loops. We're going to go under both loops again, the front loop and the back loop, or front loop and top loop, and you'll get that started. And you want to leave yourself a nice little tail to darn in the end. And then you're just going to whip stitch, going under both loops. And I know you can't see in the dark fabric, but it's going under both loops of the hood piece. Now if you do your hood in the other direction, where this is going to be your salvage edge, so this here, where your seam is down the back, and this is your salvage edge, you're going to have, you're just going to have to look for a place to work into, and basically space your stitches out as evenly as possible. And you can just find a piece of the fabric to work into there. But here we're working into the actual chain stitch or foundation stitch. And yeah, so you're just going to literally going under both loops, sew the hood to the scarf, and make sure you have you snug that up nicely so your stitches aren't too loose. Again, going under front loop and back loop, and into the next stitch, front loop and back loop. So go ahead and stitch that all the way along, and I will see you at the end. Okay, as you come to the end here, you can just take that stitch marker out And I just have a couple of more stitches to go here. And in the very last stitch, actually I think of it, in the very last stitch, you can go in, see there's one more stitch to go there. You can go in and do 2 stitches in the last one. Just go around twice in there. Do 2 loops at the end here, and then you can go ahead and darn in your tail end there. And then on this side here, you can take your stitch marker out and again do another loop in the end there and darn in your tail end. And then I'll just zoom the camera out. All right, I can't get the whole thing in the camera, but you can see how lovely that seam is. You can't even see it. And of course, there's the hood part. And I'm just going to try to flip it over. I might have to change, I might have to stop and restart if the lighting goes wonky. No, there we go. And then there's the outside seam. And look how lovely that is. So at this point, you can be done. Or I had to restart the camera. It doesn't like it when you move this around. Or you can go on to the next step here where I'm going to show you how to do a crab stitch, which is a really nice finish to create for the front of the hood. So we'll do that next. Now to do the crab stitch, we're going to work in the opposite direction. So normally you would work into your crochet work going this way. Oh, it went all dark on me again. But we're going to work from the opposite side, so the left side, and we're going to work backwards. So you can get your hood set up, ready to work backwards, and I'll zoom in to show you the stitch. So I'm using a 4.5mm crochet hook. That's the size I've used for this project. And we're going to start with a slip knot. And so joining the yarn in on, again, on the opposite end of your hood, and we're going to be working backwards rather than forwards. So where your hood is joined on to the scarf, here's the chain stitches of your scarf, and here's the ends of the rows, the selvage edge of the hood. So we'll join on right where the hood joins the scarf. We're actually joining into the stitch, the 2 stitches of the scarf. I'm going under 2 loops of that chain, and you're going to join on with a slip stitch. So bring the yarn through, flip your tail over, and do a slip stitch, and then do a chain 1. And so this is how we begin to work backwards. So you're going to start by spinning your hook counterclockwise 270 degrees, so you're back in this position. You're then going to go into the first sort of obvious stitches in the side of this selvage edge. And so again, you don't have any proper stitches to work into. It's the end of the rows. So just do your best to pick up a stitch or 2. And you're going to yarn over and pull that through those 2 stitches that are on the hood, on the selvage edge. And you'll have 2 loops on your hook. You want to be really careful not to pull that loop through this one here. You want 2 loops left on your hook, yarn over and pull through these 2 loops on your hook. And that's a single crochet. You're then going to spin your hook around again, counterclockwise, 270 degrees, and pick up another stitch on this selvage edge. Now here I can only get under 1, and that's fine. You go under 1, under 2, just do your best to work into the sides there. Yarn over, pull that through that 1 stitch on the selvage edge. Careful not to pull it through the loop on your hook, leaving 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and do a single crochet. And again, spin your hook counterclockwise, 270 degrees, and pick up another stitch as best as you can. This time I'm going under, kind of, I'm picking up 2 there. And yarn over, pull the yarn through the 2 stitches on the selvage edge. There's 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And that is the crab stitch. And it's a little bit tricky at first, but once you get going, you'll get the rhythm. Again, spin the hook counterclockwise, find the next stitch. This one is actually quite easy to find. I'm going under 2 loops, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops of the selvage edge. You've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and do a single crochet. Now sometimes when you're working along the edge here, you might have this, as you're finding these stitches here, you may either kind of need to go skip a little bit further to go this way, or tuck a bit closer this way. And if you have the choice, tuck a bit closer to the left side rather than stretching this stitch over to the next possible space. So spin your hook and find the next stitch. That one was nice and easy to find. So there you go, that's the crab stitch. So you're just going to work that back. And if you want to see this more in a slower motion, you can go to settings in the video below, choose playback speed and choose 0.75. And that's a nice speed to slow it down if you need to see this more slowly. Here I just have 1 loop, pulling in under the 1 loop of the selvage edge, 2 loops on my hook, and do a single crochet. Spin it around, pick up the next loop or 2. Here I've just got 1, and sometimes these stitches along the selvage edge are a bit tight. You kind of have to work your way in there, but you'll get the hang of it. So again, just working through that 1 loop, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. So carry on and do that crab stitch all the way through along your selvage edge here, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so here I am. I'm at the end of the hood section, and I've come back down into the scarf area. And so all you're going to do to finish off is you'll do your counterclockwise turn, and then you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the scarf. So yarn over and pull that through both those 2 loops. I went under 2 loops of that scarf stitch and through the loop on your hook. Now at this point I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to cut my tail and fasten off, but if you like, if you want to make this brim thicker, you could do a chain 1 and turn your work, and you could work your way back along that crab stitch, working, picking up a loop as best as you can, and do 2 rows of crab stitch. And that would be really fun. But I'm going to fasten off here and just cut my tail, pull that through, snug that up, and I'm going to go ahead and darn in that tail end on this side and on the other side, and then it'll be done, and I'll come back for the final reveal. Welcome back. Here it is, all done. Isn't it just so cute? I think this is super adorable, and you can be absolutely creative with this, using any stitch patterns that you like for the scarf, for the hood. You can do the hood in granny squares, you can do the scarf in granny squares, and as I say, I've got links in the description box below to all the scarf patterns that I have on my YouTube channel. And then this here, I'm just using the pattern from the comfort blanket for Pet Rescue Centers. So super easy. Be creative, be playful, and make this your own, and have a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me.